Lunch delivery turned into a life or death situation when an inmate overpowered the deputy, took his taser, and held it to his head with threats, demands, an entire facility put on high alert. This was a hostage situation that could have ended in tragedy. Thankfully, it didn't. Let's break it down. Let's look at exactly what happened. Greetings, my fearless frontliners, my fellow guardians of the galleries. I'm William Young, and this is my channel. Today, we're breaking down a terrifying, real-life incident that happened inside the Jefferson County Jail in Alabama. An inmate who was in jail, already facing serious charges, took a deputy hostage inside of the cell, restrained him, and held a taser to his head while making threats, while making demands. This, folks, was not a drill. This was serious. This was dangerous. High-stakes situation that could have ended in tragedy. But before we dive into it, before I go any further, I want to thank the members of the Just Corrections Patreon community for supporting the video, for supporting the channel. Without you, I could not create the content that I create, and I appreciate you all so very much. If you're watching and you want to contribute, support the channel, I'll throw a link in the description below, or if you'd rather buy a super thanks, you can do that by hitting the little thank you button right below me. So let's get into it. A few weeks ago, January 16, 2025, 1:30 p.m. in the afternoon, a routine task inside the Jefferson County Jail turned into an absolute nightmare. The deputy working was delivering lunch trays inside of the facility, delivering the trays to the inmates when he was suddenly ambushed, when he was attacked by an inmate, 33-year-old inmate, Birmingham residents, got his name here, who cares about his name, with a lengthy criminal record, including charges. He was in there for, let me see here, robbery, attempted murder, arson. It says here that the inmate overpowered the deputy, drug him into his cell, handcuffed him with his own restraints, and then covered the deputy's head with a blanket. Then the inmate took the deputy's taser and held it to his head. Now, the inmate then reportedly told the deputy, "I'm going to hurt you. But this is not for you." And this, I'm quoting this from the article. It says, "I'm going to hurt you. This is not for you. It's for them. They haven't been treating me right." And I want to talk about this just for a minute. They haven't been treating me right. This takes me back to March 27th, 2021 in Oklahoma. An officer was taken hostage and severely assaulted, stabbed, attacked by several inmates, and their claim in the kind of the aftermath of this, part of the reasoning was that they did this because of plumbing issues, hot water, cold food. There was an article posted about the incident on KFOR Oklahoma News 4, and they quoted an advocate for the family, a friend of the family, saying at the time of the riot, they had no food, no hot water for days on end. The article also said, right here, it says, one of the inmates said that they had not been fed and had no water. Folks, this is a problem. And this is one of those things that we really have to pay attention to. And what I encourage officers to pay attention to is the small things that can become big things. A clogged toilet, a cold tray, hair in the food. These kind of things can seem trivial. These kind of things can seem like they don't warrant our immediate attention, but they do, because over time, what you have to understand here is over time, these things build up, right? You are dealing with an individual who is not in their right mind, who is in a situation that they do not want to be in. And I want you to think about this for a second. What happens to you and I'm assuming you're, I'm going to say this and I'm going to smile a little bit, a rational human being who works corrections, right? So that's maybe a contradiction, but you're a rational human being. Me, I'll take me for an example. I go through a drive-through restaurant. I order my food and I ask for ranch, and I get home and there's no ranch in the bag. I have at times lost my mind because even though I have ranch in the fridge, I go on a multi-minute tangent about how, it's not rocket science, and there's all these things that I say. Sometimes I've even called the place back, and they're like, "What do you want me to do, bro? Come back and get the ranch or whatever." But what I'm saying is, if a rational human being, if somebody like you can be pushed to the point where you're ready to tear shit up, where you're ready to burn stuff down because of something that others may find insignificant, then it only makes sense to assume that somebody who is in a cage, who is locked in a box, who has zero freedom, who has to ask and depend on everybody for everything, would have a similar reaction. So here's the other side to that. Keep in mind, it's their perception. It's a person's perception of what is happening that can drive their actions. Okay. And so no hot water for weeks and weeks and weeks. Maybe that's true. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's only a couple of days. And maybe you told them, but here's the deal. You have to provide a platform for them to be heard. They need to feel like their concerns are being heard and that somebody is doing something to meet those concerns. And I've talked about this in other videos when we talk about like inmates with medical issues or mental health issues. All it takes is for you to make a phone call to pass that along. All it takes is for you to complete a work order online or go through your supervisor to say, hey, these guys say they have no plumbing. Hey, these guys say that the plumbing's not working. Hey, these guys say the food's cold. Hey, these guys don't have any water. Pass that along and then communicate that with them and say, yeah, look, I am doing this. I am communicating this. I am talking to them, and then let them know, because here's the problem, man. This escalates quickly. We work inside of powder kegs. We work inside of crock pots that are ready to explode at any minute. And so you have to make sure that these little, what's I'm going to say little things, but they're not little things inside. What you feel like are little things are not really things, little things, and they could explode rather quickly. Do you guys ever feel like this job is changing you, like the weight of the walls are pressing in and you're not necessarily the same person who walked through those gates? Well, you're not imagining things. Corrections, the training, the trauma, the time that we spend inside rewires the way we think, react, and the way we see the world. And that's exactly why I wrote my new book, Train to Change: The Unfortunate and Unintentional Consequences of the Correctional Curriculum. It's a deep dive into how this career shapes us mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and more important, how we take back control. So whether you're a rookie or a veteran, this book right here, this tool, will help you recognize the hidden impacts of the job and give you the tools to push back, stay sharp, and protect your well-being if you're in this profession, or you know somebody who is. Grab this book, read this book, use this book as a tool to educate and elevate yourself and the profession. Get your copy of Train to Change today, available on Amazon. I'll throw the link in the description. Start taking control of your story today. And hey, if you've already read it, leave me a review and let me know what you think. Start changing. Let's start changing the conversation about mental health and corrections, normalizing the conversation in mental health and corrections together. All right, so let's get back to the story. I apologize for my tangent. So while this officer is taken hostage, while he's pulled into the cell, another deputy noticed that something was wrong. An inmate, actually, it says here in the article, the inmate tipped him off that something was happening in the cell. And when the deputy went up to check, he saw the hostage situation. He saw the officer with the blanket and the taser and all that. And then he immediately called for assistance, initiating what this article says is a code blue alarm, basically a radio call. Hey, we need some help over here. And so the jail's emergency response team quickly assembled. And I don't know what your response is. I don't know if you have a specialized, correctional emergency response team. I don't know if you have escorts or rovers or people that just come, but I'm assuming that that's what happened. They called the code blue. Hey, I got a situation here. The emergency response team, the responders, the escorts, they quickly assembled. And this says here, a lieutenant tried to negotiate with the inmate, but the inmate wasn't backing down, and he made some demands. Okay, so you have here, I'm gonna maybe make an assumption that there wasn't that there aren't specialized teams here, that there isn't negotiators on staff. Usually in a leadership position, you wouldn't put yourself, in the line of fire. So maybe this lieutenant wasn't, running the building at the time. I don't know, but that's beside the point. But it says here, a lieutenant tried to negotiate with the inmate, but the inmate wasn't backing down. His demand was clear. If y'all come in here, this is his threat. If y'all come in here, I'm going to shoot him in the head 5 times. So he's got the taser to the head. He's threatening to shoot him in the head with the taser 5 times. And then his demand was this. He wanted to see his judge. So here's the thing. He's making the threats. He's got the taser, and he's making a demand that we can't possibly meet. And so I'm going to go on a little side tangent here, and I'm going to talk about why it's so important to have organized and specially trained teams and personnel to handle these types of things. Okay, so when this says, let me scroll back up, it says here that the jail's emergency response team quickly assembled. I hope they really do have a formal emergency response team, people that are trained to handle these sort of things. And in this situation, having a negotiator, having somebody who is trained in crisis intervention, crisis negotiation, to be able to talk with this individual would be extremely helpful. Because if you're standing there and you have an individual who is screaming, they have a taser to an officer's head, they are demanding to see the judge. They want the judge. Let me see what he says here. He says he wants to see his judge. It's 1:30 in the afternoon. You're not, afternoon court's already gone. You're not going to see your judge. The judges aren't going to jump because you say jump. The judges aren't going to come in the facility and see the facility. How can you walk that individual back? How can you talk that individual down to safely resolve the situation? And so that's why having that specialized training, and most of the use of force policies that I'm familiar with all start with officer presence and verbal de-escalation, verbal directives. Okay, so that is something that we need training in, and it's two very separate disciplines, right? The crisis negotiators, the crisis intervention, the people that say, I'm going to communicate. That's my skill set. That's where my training is. I believe in my communication skills and I have time to do this. And then there's the people that view the situation tactically. How can I neutralize the threat as quickly and as safely as possible? How can I get this hostage, our brother, our fellow deputy, out without them getting hurt, right? And so it's two different mindsets. And so that's why it's important when you have a jail emergency response team, a crisis emergency response team, whatever it is spend as much time on your negotiators as you do your muscle. And if you want more information on that, send me an email and I will hook you up with our head of our crisis negotiation team and the head of our corrections emergency response and transport team, and have them help you implement a team of your own. So the deputy's there, they call the emergency response team, negotiations are failing, and I don't like to use that word, but it says here in the article, when negotiations failed, the emergency response team moved in, and as they breached the cell, the individual, the subject, the inmate did fire the taser, but not at the hostage, fired it at the incoming officer, striking one of the deputies in the forearm, which, again, why you want formally trained, properly equipped individuals to do this kind of thing, because if they got the pads, they have the all those things, the vests, helmets, and all that shit, then it probably didn't hurt. It probably didn't do the damage it would have done if the guy would have got tased in the head. So despite the resistance, there was a little bit of resistance here, it looks like. Despite the resistance, this says here the team secured the hostage deputy and took the inmate into custody. So they were able to take the person down, take the individual down. And those of you that have worked inside of a facility can kind of in your mind work how the wording is funny to me. Secured the deputy, took him into custody. So basically what they did is they bum rushed the dude probably. They took him to the ground. They cuffed him up. They pulled him out. And then they debriefed everybody. So once the situation was under control, it says here medical staff evaluated the deputy, the injured deputy, which the one that got shot in the forearm, and the inmate. And then they went about their business. And it says here the inmate, who is already facing serious charges, is now looking at additional charges of kidnapping and menacing. And the reason that I wanted to talk about this today, to bring this up, I don't normally just put a bunch of stuff out there like this, because this kind of stuff happens all the time, right? But that's why I wanted to talk about this. This incident highlights our reality, the reality of working in corrections, a routine task, which I hate that word, right? Nothing is routine inside of a correctional facility, but a task, something as simple as delivering trays, as serving lunch, serving breakfast, serving dinner, can turn into a life-threatening, a life or death situation just like that in an instant, right? And that's why situational awareness, that's why you're training, that's why having an organized and formalized response, formalized, is that even a word? Formal response, an emergency response team, a crisis negotiation team, having them trained, having them on shift, having them ready to go is important, because the response that they had in this case saved the deputy's life, right? But it also serves as a reminder to everybody, every correctional staff member out there, that at any minute, at any moment, shit can get real serious real quick, right? And so that is why we train the way that we do. And that is why you need to understand that anytime you are on shift inside the building, you have to be ready. You have to be ready, because at any moment, you could be in the situation that this deputy is in, and that's the reality of it. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with me today, for listening, for watching to this episode of the podcast. New episodes are available daily, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. Set a reminder on your phone or your Google Calendar so you never miss an episode. Make sure you subscribe to the show, follow the show on YouTube or whatever podcast platform you prefer. I'm on Facebook, X, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. Leave a comment, get involved, engage, share the show with your friends, your family, your fellow correctional professional, everybody. Just share the show with everybody. Everybody you know, your neighbor, the mailman, the person at the coffee shop, the Just Corrections podcast. And again, if you're interested in supporting the show, please consider becoming a member of the Just Corrections Patreon community. I'll put a link in the description below. There's a couple of different tiers, a couple of different options. So check that out. Again, don't forget to check out my books. All of them are available on Amazon. Links in the description below. And if you'd like to bring me out to your event to speak or present, send me an email at justcorrections.booking@gmail.com. All right, guys, that's all I got. Until next time, be smart, stay safe, stay sane, and we'll talk soon.